Welcome to the Evolution of AloHā podcast with me, Dr. Jerry Ibala-Rosa Tennell. Now let's talk story. Welcome everyone to the Evolution of AloHā podcast, a Plowline production. I am your host, Dr. Jerry Ibala-Rosa Tennell. I'm still getting used to saying that doctor thing. I know, it's exciting. So today we'll be talking with Katie Lyons, a lead banker at U.S. Bank in Bellingham, Washington. And we're going to go into the complexity of identity. When you listen to Katie's story, it's complex. I mean, she identifies as an African American woman adopted by a white family, but is also biracial, but has a birth certificate that says Caucasian.
When you say it back.
But yeah, so I am excited. But before we get started, one of the first things that I like to do is to honor the land in which our feet stand. And I begin by acknowledging that those of us who are gathering in the Pacific Northwest area, we are on the ancestral homelands of the Coast Salish people who have lived in the Salish Sea Basin since time immemorial. We respect this place and honor the sacred spiritual connection to the land, water, and its people, past, present, and future. And by acknowledging these lands and the original indigenous inhabitants, we have the opportunity to reach back to our own indigenous roots and reflect on the impacts of colonialism and the lands from which all our people come. And we are connected to our ancestors through this connection to land, for the land is what connects us all. So please join me in taking a moment to honor the land of the traditional people in the territory in which you stand. And today I honor the Tulalip tribes and allied bands for their enduring care and continuous protection of the land where I currently reside. So thank you so much for joining me today, Katie. You are actually coming in from you're in Bellingham.
I'm in Bellingham, yes. Before that, I was in Alabama. Took a leap of faith with my husband and my two kids. And we made our way out to Bellingham and have not looked back. We love it. We are thriving here. It's amazing.
That's awesome. And Bellingham, I lived in Bellingham for a really long time. And, it's like every time I would see like a person of color.
Girl, we play a game and say, look, it's a Black person here in Bellingham. So, it's a rare spotting. But we get excited when we see each other.
Rare spotting.
We're not out very much. We're not. Not here.
And it's like a lot of times we have to ask ourselves, right? We have to ask ourselves on why is it like this? What's going on with the cities and where we live? So
right.
Anyway, okay, so let's talk about you.
My favorite topic. I'm just kidding. I am 35 years young. I'm a mom of two beautiful babies. I have a 3-year-old and a 6-year-old, first grade and preschool. I'm married to the most amazing man on earth, John Lyons. He just graduated with his master's in orchestral conducting. I am a banker. I'm at U.S. Bank in Bellingham. Love the culture of U.S. Bank. Thriving a lot there. I've got a great team that supports me and lifts me up there. So when I say we're thriving, we are thriving here. It's been a whirlwind over the past 2 years of being here, but it's been so amazing getting to know a different side of the United States. I start out by saying I'm loved beyond all reasoning. My family's amazing. They love me at the core of who I am, what I am, I will say my dad was very pivotal in explaining certain things to me growing up. He helped me recognize that I am a Black woman. Even though I didn't understand necessarily, because my mom leaned more toward the fact of, oh, we don't see color, we just love, which is a beautiful narrative, but not recognizing my color is disregarding the beautifulness of that. So, where, having the notion of, we don't see color is a beautiful thing, but it's also, what about my heritage and my culture and my families that I come from? We want to honor that portion of it too. And my dad always sent me every summer to Memphis, Tennessee, to go stay with my grandparents, who were the only white people in a Black neighborhood, and wanted me around the culture, wanted me to learn. And I didn't see it then. I just saw it as, I'm going to see my grandparents for the summer. But even my grandma said, let's go to Miss Pearl's house. Miss Pearl took me in, showed me how to cook certain things, taught me a lot of things as a younger kid that I would have never had the experience to do otherwise. So for me, having him there was huge. I only got him until I was 19, unfortunately. But once I turned 19, 20, 21, remembering those good things about him, honing in and just realizing his life and what he did for me, I see him shaping me into a Black woman. There was one conversation we had right before he passed was, Katie, I didn't raise you the same way as your sister for a reason. Your sister has privileges you will never believe, that you will never get to have. And when I'm not here to protect you from them, I need you to sit in those things and grab onto those things that make you strong. And I'm not crying, you're crying. So, having that man shape me before I even knew I was being shaped in a different kind of way. People who get to grow up in it and be in it all the time, that's a little different from me having to learn it and to figure it out and know where my place is in this world. Where you kind of, with certain families, you grow up knowing where your place is in this world.
Right. Because was your dad Black?
My adopted dad, no.
Okay. And he's the one that helped shape you.
He was, yeah. He was. He wise beyond his years and loved me at my very core, just like the rest of my family, but knew he couldn't raise me the same way. Which, I'm appreciative now. I always never could understand why I couldn't do certain things my sister could do. Granted, we are 11 and a half years apart, but, the certain things that she got to do, I don't get to do. So it's learning that he was protecting me and helping me grow in a certain way that he knew they couldn't help me in.
Right. So this is so interesting. So your dad, he's your adopted father, was white.
Yes.
And he would send you to he would send you back to where, Tennessee?
Memphis, Tennessee.
Memphis, Tennessee. So you could learn about culture. Do you think that in that lens, because he's a man of European descent, do you think he developed any of those things from his point of view?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
You think about nurture versus nature, right? Nurture wise, my family's white. That's what they are. Now nature, you kind of have a little bit of what's around you, but nature happens when your nurturing takes you there, right? So by nature, he took me to where that culture was. So it was there, but I also had it through the lens of my dad and my mom and my family, not necessarily at the core of what it was.
So how did you embody it, or how do you walk in between the space where um, you're a Black woman in being born um, into this biracial, uh, family, growing up predominantly white? How do you walk between that, knowing what it means to be a Black woman and the lifestyle of a white person?
Um, it I started to notice it after my dad died. It sounds so weird, and I don't know if it was him protecting me from it or more of I was just had my lenses on. You know what I'm saying? I don't know necessarily where that came from, and maybe I'll find out in unpacking all of this. But you know, for me, I started to own into the fact that I am a Black woman shortly after I met my husband. When we started to get to know each other, I met his mom, and his mom, my mother-in-law, when I say I've literally married him just to be in her presence. She's the most amazing woman on earth. Like, ask anybody who knows her. She is one of the most pivotal, wonderful, loving people I'm so lucky I get to call her ma, you know? So she really helped shape me in my adulthood of being a woman, a Black woman, and how that navigates through the world and how we can navigate that, um, holding our crown straight, you know, and knowing how to be, pick and choose your battles, you know, pick and choose those battles, but stay strong, stay regal in a certain way. And she really helped in my adult life through my 20s, shaped me into the Black woman I am today. She helped me remove some of those lenses. And it wasn't just her, it was like his whole family just like took me in and were like, you're ours now, you know?
Yeah.
And I just couldn't, a whole new world was opened up to me through that. And I am forever appreciative of it. It helped me see who I am, where I'm letting things slide, little microaggressions that people would say to me, like, I'm an Oreo.
Mm-hmm.
I'm white on the inside, but I got a Black exterior.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You know, that now offends me very much.
Yeah.
You know, just because I was raised by white people doesn't mean I'm Black at who I am, or white at, in the core of who I am.
Right.
What is
Right.
what does that
Yeah.
mean? You
Yeah.
know? So, you know, there's a lot of things that I have to work through on that portion of it. But um, yeah, I navigating without the lens is the biggest part of what I've learned becoming and blossoming into the Black woman that I am today.
Yeah. Yeah. So your biological mom was Black?
No, my biological mom was white.
Your biological mom was white, and your biological. So do you know anything about your biological dad on his upbringing?
Yeah. I mean, they were just regular, awesome Black family. They lived in California. It's where I'm originally from. Lived in Orange County for the first 13 years of my life, but that's also where my biological mom was and
Mm-hmm.
my dad was. Um, Fun fact, I got to meet my biological dad's family this summer, which was, I will get into that, just
Oh,
amazing.
let's do it.
Um, it was amazing. I did a My Heritage DNA test. I've always wanted to find my birth dad.
Mhm.
Oh, I don't know why. Like my dad, my adopted dad, Gary, he would always say, your dad loved you so much. And I later on down the road understood it as he never actually wanted to give me up. He wanted to keep me, and so did my granny. And the judge ruled in favor of my family, which at the end of the day, I'm very thankful for, because look where I am now. You know,
Mhm.
I'm a firm believer things still happen for the reason they're supposed to. And God gave me this task. And this, the world gave me this task to take on myself and learn and grow from it and share it with everybody else. So that now I have a beautiful Black young lady that I birthed, and I get to teach her how to navigate this world with me,
Mm-hmm.
as a Black woman. And even though I'm still growing and learning in it every single day,
Right.
I can make her younger. I can get that confidence going now. I can fix her crown now,
Straighten it up. Just straighten it
right?
up. It's like it's like as I'm talking with sharing, you're sharing these stories. There's always these things that come up in me being mixed race, and it's like my heritage is on the side. Well, both of our heritage, our ancestry comes from colonization,
Yeah.
right? And so for just probably about maybe 6-7 years ago, I came into the realization that I was both the colonizer and the colonized.
Mm. Mm. What a tough one to unravel, right?
And it's, it's like it hit me. It just hit me because Jeremy, who is, my husband, this white man, I would be calling him the colonizer, that he was occupying my space and he was just doing all of these things. And, he's the epitome of everything that I just want to like break down. And it was a terrible time for us as we started to unravel these things and rediscover and discover these things about who we are, like what is within our cocoa, our blood, our DNA, right? And so as I'm calling him a colonizer, he's like, you do realize that you are part of the biggest colonizers on the planet. And I'm like, what the hell are you talking about? He goes, are you not Spanish and Portuguese? And I'm like, yes. And he's like, they are the biggest colonizers. He goes, how do you think you came to be? You're Filipino and you're Spanish and you're Portuguese. The Philippines was colonized by the Filipinos and by the Spanish and the Portuguese. And you're all three. So what do you think happened there? It was like, oh my God, Katie. I was like, what the fuck?
How long did you not talk to him?
Oh my gosh, for a long time. But I needed to unpack that.
Yeah.
Because I realized that, holy cow, there could be a couple of things. It could be where, it's like I am the raped and I'm the rapist. I'm the murderer. I'm the murdered. I'm all of these things, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I know that. I said, who knows what happened, right? It's like within my DNA, I could be here because of trauma that had happened a long time ago. My great 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 grandmother or my great 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 grandfather or whatever it is, right? It's like colonization happened, they came in and they went and they raped the women, because that's one of the tenets of colonization, right? Is kill the men, rape the women, steal the children, demonize the gods, right? These are the tenets of colonization. And I'm thinking, oh my gosh, am I a product of that? Am I a product of that? And I needed to work it out to where it's like, okay, how do I detangle all of these complexities in my life, acknowledge it, know that there was harm, and realize healing needs to happen, right? So it's like, ooh, when you're talking about all of, everything, being a Black woman, being raised by white people, knowing that the people of European descent and all of the complexities on white supremacy and how they got to this place, and being a Black woman,
Mm-hmm.
and all that has happened.
Right. Yeah. It's a lot to unpack, and it's a lot you struggle with too. I still struggle with it a little bit. I have a white family that voted for somebody that I despise and literally is out to harm people of color, and I'm like, how? And, saying Black Lives Matter, all lives matter. That's not how I raised you. No, it's not. Thank God. And I had to eventually, it's sad because I can't talk about certain things with them. My sister is my backbone. She's the one I can talk to. She's the one that, she listens. She might not agree with me every time, but she listens. And that's the part that makes the biggest difference for me and her, is that she listens and she tries to understand. It's not like she just listens and goes, okay, I heard you, bye. She listens, then she'll kind of come in with questions too. But what about this? And we can actually have a conversation that goes somewhere. We might not come to some sort of aha moment, but we had a conversation. And she literally is my backbone, my heartbeat. She is the kindest, most loving person you will ever meet. She got into a car wreck yesterday and hugged the person that hit her. Who does that? I would have been out in my car cussing everybody out. And she gets out of the car. He's mad at her because he hit her, and she just hugs him. Who does that? So, when I like to give an example of where her heart is, that's my sister, and at the very core of that, she just wants to understand. She's forever soaking in knowledge. And I love that about her. And I believe that me and her are the reason why we were put together in this universe. I fully believe. If it wasn't just because my mom and dad wanted to have another kid, and I know they did, and that's why they got me, but it was because me and her were just, universe aligned us. We were supposed to be together. So to have my sister to bounce these things off of and to listen to me, she's like almost like the mediator for the family, poor thing, because I get hot-headed. The Black woman in me comes out. It does. There's sometimes I always be like, what the fuck did you just say to me? Like to my own family. And it's not like I'm trying to be disrespectful, but you were just disrespectful to me, so it's a hard weave to unpack, because you have family members that wave that Trump flag and that still carry around the Confederate flag because it's part of their history. It's part of my history too, and it wasn't so good, But then, that's part of half of my DNA, right. So, I'm proud of it or anything, but it's still as a Black woman, I'm like, do you not even care? Like,
right.
And you can't say Black Lives Matter to me because why?
Right. Yeah.
And my mom will say, oh, well, that was a terrorist organization. I said, where did you hear that? Who said that? Who did you ask your Black daughter? Did you ask your Black son-in-law? Did you ask any of the Black family members that have what Black Lives Matters means to them, what it's about? Right. You just listen to propaganda, and for us, like those conversations don't last long. But with my sister, my heartbeat, she listens. She knows, she understands. Even if she doesn't understand, she's still constantly learning, so it's a hard part to navigate, long story short.
And your sister's older than you?
Yes, she is almost 12 years older than me, 11 and a half years older than me. She is almost 50.
Is she nearby?
No, she's still in Alabama. I miss her so much. Like, I really do. Every day. It's a struggle. It's between me, my husband, and her. We have a group text, and every day she texts, I love you, just to make sure we know. We're always in the roundup. She texts us her kids. She'll text us, and just to make sure that, we know that she loves us, and it's always unconditional. We know that.
Yeah. That's and I think that's, we need more people like your sister in this world. And, especially for people of European descent. It's like, there's a lot going on right now in, for EDI. Everything nowadays is equity, diversity, inclusion. It's like anti-racism and all of these things, and those are great. Those are great, and
Absolutely.
we need that. We need that. But what we also need is we need to stop hurting each other.
Mm.
We need to stop hurting each other. We need to be able to sit down and have some real ass conversations, have some real heart to heart conversations, not the kind of conversations where it's like, let's just be kind to one another and racism will go away.
Yeah, that doesn't work.
Right? It's like, let's talk about why we have EDI and why, it's like our country right now is just going crazy over it. And and it's all good, but we are still freaking divided.
We
We are
are.
still divided. And as
Yep.
long as we continue to be divided, we're going to keep freaking lobbying bombs across the other side, expecting people to stop.
Yep.
And it's like, when is the harm? When is the harm going to end? And so, and I think it's because there's individuals like you and I who are navigating these complex worlds
It's everywhere.
and all this identity and everything that goes with it. And we're like, okay, yes, I get it. My grandfather was a colonizer who colonized my grandmother, right? Physically, I have no idea, right?
Right.
Emotionally, spiritually, whatever it is.
Exactly. Yeah. And and that it's funny how I read a post today of this white mom who her daughter picked out a book from school, and it was Nettie's Day in the South or something like that. And it was pre 1960s. So, slavery was still a thing, like pre everything. She took a day to the South. She got to see Black people being sold. And while this little girl is reading it, she's like in tears, and the mom made the post saying, I made her finish it. I know she was upset, and it was something that she needed to read and she needed to learn about, because we're trying so hard to erase that fact here in America. And the fact is, we can't erase it. So I made her finish the book, even though we were both in tears. I made her finish that book. And that sweet little girl, even though she was heartbroken, she learned a hard but good lesson.
Mm-hmm.
It happened. It happened. You got to know about it, because if you don't know about it, how are you going to learn from it?
Right.
And, they erasing the past doesn't make you better. Learning from it, growing from it makes us better.
Right.
And I just, it's a hard conversation to even have with young Black kids. I sit here and I have to talk about certain things like that with my kids. I have a white family. They'll be like, so your grandma did that and your grandpa did that? And I'm like, yeah, unfortunately, it's something I have to grasp with, and I have to deal with. And it sucks because I have to say, like, yeah, that was my family member that did that, but
Mm-hmm.
that's who I am. I can't help that,
Right.
But I told him, I said, but we learn and we grow and we move on from it so that we can make it better, so that you guys can come up and live in a world that is learning from those past mistakes to make it better, because you're going to be the people who's eventually making laws. You're going to be the people who are making things better for people. My generation's still trying to figure it out.
Yeah. I mean, and and it's working. It's working, right? I mean, it's like,
Yeah.
look, I think there was an 18-year-old in Idaho or Iowa or something like that, that he ran against the school board, and he won against some incumbents who's been there for a long time, but he stood up and he spoke, and he was like, this is wrong. And there are so many young people that are starting to do that.
Yes.
And we
And
have to.
support. Those are the ones that are coming in and making these things right.
Yes. Yeah. And
Yeah.
it scares the shit out of the generation prior.
It
right?
does.
Because people want change, but people don't want to change.
That's a big one.
Right? Right? That's
Mhm.
it. It's like, yes, we want change. We want change. Well, are you all willing to change? Because if
Like,
you are, that's going to be a lot. I mean, you're going to have to unpack and acknowledge all
exactly.
of these things and how, it's like for people of European descent who has benefited all this time from things that was written for people, for them to uphold whiteness and supremacy, they've got to contend with that. They've got to
Mhm.
contend with it. And we've got to contend with the fact that, there's some of us that are still struggling because of that.
Yeah.
But how do we get to the place where we can have a conversation and be like, you know what? I know this shit is hard. And I know that your body is going to reject everything that it feels because it wants to protect itself. It wants to protect itself, but it's time to lean into that discomfort. So then that way we can start to evolve and change. And it's not going to be fun. I mean, I deal with it all the time. It's like, oh, it's not a good feeling. So, and I also can see within this, like you and I know how it feels to just have that pull of our gut and our heart and and looking at it, and it's like, oh man, there is some ugly shit in here about my family, about who I am and what I hold within my blood.
Yeah.
I am these things, but
Yeah.
we can make different choices. But imagine, I know when I was younger, it would take a lot for me. I didn't want to feel those things. And, it's like alcohol was one way to just silence all of that, right? Promiscuity is one way to just silence all of that. Drugs and alcohol is a way to silence all of that. But imagine those individuals who are not able to have access to mental health, not have access to um, different ways of thinking and being. Oh,
Yeah. I know. And you mentioned earlier, like, discomfort scares us and leaning into our discomfort. And I know one thing, we've been just so trained that discomfort is supposed to scare us. When
mhm,
when I tried to relearn that myself and trying to teach my children that discomfort is a sign that we need to lean in and that something needs to change. So instead of letting it scare me, I'm trying to like condition myself to say, okay, I'm uncomfortable. Why am I uncomfortable?
mhm.
What about this is making me uncomfortable? What do I need to change? Because if I'm uncomfortable, it's something about me. It doesn't necessarily have to mean it's somebody else. It's me.
Right.
Why am I uncomfortable? Now,
Mhm.
there are situations where other people do make you uncomfortable, yes. But, it's leaning into that to say, okay, let's evaluate myself. Let's lean into what's making me feel uncomfortable and relearning that don't let it scare you.
Mhm.
Don't let it scare you. I know it's a scary thing, but don't let it scare you.
Right. Be curious about it.
Push forward into it and
Yes.
figure it out.
Mhm.
Whether that means, and you're not going to figure it out that day.
Right.
Absolutely. But it's a journey that something and somebody is trying to put you
Mhm.
into, and
Right.
that life is trying to journey you through. you know
Yeah. Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know I've ever since, and I started that when we came out here, when we got to Bellingham, I was uncomfortable all around. And I was like, why am I so uncomfortable? Why am I uncomfortable? And I started leaning into it and figuring out what was wrong with me, and I'm the most extroverted introvert you will ever meet in your life. And I learned for myself what that meant and what I was making myself uncomfortable, essentially. So it took a journey for me to get there and to realize that. But I learned a lot and I grew. I got to
Yeah.
meet you. Trey made me be an extrovert that day. And and I'm so glad he did. Look at that. I have a beautiful friendship out of this. Like, I can't, like, lean into it. You don't know what you're going to get out of it.
Right. I mean, I think that's one of the things is we have made it to where things are supposed to just be the status quo. Don't disrupt anything. Don't change anything. Everything is just going to be this way. So anything that was not of the status quo would be deemed bad or uncomfortable or whatever it is. And yeah, we have these, it's the way we understand the world, right? So if I'm uncomfortable because I walk into the room, it's, sometimes it's an external kind of, discomfort where it's like, I don't like the energy. It doesn't feel right here.
Yeah.
And then there's the other kind of discomfort where it's like, oh, something inside me is telling me that why am I angry about this? Why is this thing that this person's talking to me about is triggering something, activating my somatic response? So that's the differentiation, right? Is being able to kind of like decipher what these emotions are. So then that way you can lean in and be, but always be curious. Always be curious. It's like, that's, and I mean, and I feel that sometimes we remove that curiosity as we get older, right? Because even with our kids, because our kids are so curious. It's how they try to figure out, what's next, what happens, it's like, oh, if I touch that thing, it's going to burn my hand. Oh, whoa, I'm not going to touch that again, right? But we remove the curiosity because we just want things to just be the same. Like when we drive, our brain isn't really thinking. It's like we drive and it just becomes a habit. But curiosity questions. We don't want people to question, but that is so important. And we can learn so much from just the questioning part of it. And, it's like, I think that's one of the points as we talk about navigating these complex identities is to always remain in the place of ambiguity, lean into ambiguity, right? Be curious about it because we're still discovering things that we didn't know about, and we will continue the deeper we go. And I think it's a lifelong journey. I don't think we ever get to that point where it's like, oh.
Right. There's no ending point. There's not.
Right.
Life, it's a journey. And you either get on for the ride or you're gonna be stuck.
Right.
and
right.
and if you're willing to live your life stuck, by all means, go about it. But those of us along for this journey and how our paths navigate together and intertwine and go off on some other one, it's a joyous thing when you look at it, from the bigger picture standpoint. But you get those people where just being stuck right there and you're building that beaver dam all the way up to where you block out noise, you block out people, you block out everything, and it's just you in this tiny little dam.
Right.
And you're not going anywhere. You're not learning anything. And what kind of life is that?
Right.
When
exactly.
you're not living, just, lots of unpacking. And you mentioned just questioning everything. I think for me, that's all I've ever done. It's just question everything. And I know my mom's like, oh, here she goes again. She's questioning again. I love that my parents were always so open about my birth parents. Always. They were actually all together. I have a picture of all of us in the hospital together. And it was my parents, my sister, and then my birth mom and my birth dad holding me right before my parents took me home. Like, and my mom has it in the baby book. Where's my baby book? Anyway, I'll ask her later. she's old. All of them have always been so open with me about it. They just lost contact with them over the years. So by the time I started asking questions, like in-depth questions, there was nothing, they couldn't answer them. So part of the reason why I did that DNA test, I was like, I'm going to try. I mean, Trey and my husband, John, were like, the biggest part of that for me were like, just do it. The worst thing they can say is no, which is understandable, right?
Mhm.
I got put up for adoption. So yeah, worst thing they can say is no. But for me, I was sitting there thinking, at the very least, I just want to know medical history. I want to know not only for myself, but for my children, so that I can be prepared for whatever comes. And you're never prepared, but at least I could say, this ran in my family. As an adopted kid, that's a hard thing. We don't know unless it was an open adoption. Mine was closed. Even though my family kept in contact with them for a little while, it wasn't I need to know your medical history kind of thing. It was just, here's an update on Katie and keep it moving.
So when they were together at the hospital and your adopted parents took you home, that was it? What's the difference between a closed adoption and an open adoption?
Open adoption keeps records open so that the child can look for their biological parents. Closed closes everything. Now it's up to the adopted family and the family that is giving the child away to stay in contact or not. But as far as me trying to find records on them, I wouldn't be able to, because it's a closed adoption. They don't have any records open for them.
So they were together when when you were born. Your adopted parents took you home, and at that point they just shut the door. That was it.
My birth mother, she stuck around for about 3 years. I think I hit my sister a lot harder than it did me, because I'm 3. What do I know? I'm with my family. But it's like one day my biological mom just stopped calling, stopped writing, stopped coming over. And I think it hurt my sister more than it hurt me.
Yeah.
Energy coming through, because she's just awesome. But for me, I was like, well, I have you. So it doesn't hurt me as much. And then they didn't have any contact with my birth dad, because after that, I think he was just so heartbroken over it. And what my family was telling me when I met them this summer was, his one regret in life was not finding me before he died. And when my DNA matched with a cousin, shout out to Richard, Richard was like, I put everything out. I was like, this is my name. Here's my full name. Here's what I do. And I was adopted, and I believe you're related to the Kelly family. And I had this whole spiel written out. I sent it to him, and he writes back. He's like, I'm sorry, do you go by Katie? And I was like, yes, I do. And he was like, Katie, we've been looking for you for 30 years. And I was like, I'm sorry, excuse me? like, what? What? It like blew my mind. Not everybody's going to have that beautiful story of your biological family who's been looking for you for 30 years, but I immediately started getting floods of phone calls from my uncles and my aunts and my granny and, just everybody. I did find out that unfortunately my biological dad had passed in 2009. But, I gained a whole family out of this. And I have a whole new side to me that I am discovering and learning. And it's a beautiful process to get to know these wonderful, loving people who just, even though they know nothing about me or where I was, they continue to love me regardless. They had no clue where I was. They had no clue who I turned out to be. They prayed for me every day. Every time they had family dinners, they'd pray for me. That just, to me, I'm just like mind blown, So, that to me, like, it's a fairy tale story that I get to have. That's crazy. That's nuts.
Yeah.
So stay curious, people. You never know what what could come out of it.
Right. Where are you now in navigating your racial identity?
I'm definitely all day, every day, identify as a Black woman. I do. I've come, it still sucks, but I've come to terms with the fact that, I am biracial, and I have to unpack the fact that, I have the white side of me that, and the European side of me that just, I got to deal with. Like, we internally grasp with the fact that there were colonizers and, people who stole and raped and lynched and everything else, and still do those things now. But I'm, this is the simplest way I can put it. If we were in the 1960s, where am I sitting on the bus? I'm in the back. I'm in the back. I get treated just like a Black woman every day of my life, whether people realize it or not.
Like what do you mean? How are they treating you as a?
Well, I mean, if we go back home to Alabama, I can tell you one instance. I had Olivia, she's like 9 months old. We are leaving a theater because we had a show that we were doing, and I stopped to get milk on the way home. And the lady at the cashier counter looks at me and goes, "I don't take food stamps at this register," even though it's the only register open and it's 9 o'clock at night. And I was like, okay, so how do you, I'm just like, can I just pay? Because I didn't have food stamps. So I didn't know what she was talking about. And she's like, "I don't take food stamps here." And I'm like, okay, can I pay for my milk? Like, can I go? And the lady behind me, who is a European descent woman with her 3 crying babies and 2 cartfuls full of food, was like, "Oh my God, you don't take food stamps?" Because she's got food stamps. I have my money that I'm gonna pay for the milk for. I'm glad she has food stamps. She's got 3 mouths to feed. She needs it. you know, I'm just paying whether I had it or not. What does it matter?
Yeah.
But it was this. It was all of this that made her react that way. Manager fired her on spot, but it's the little microaggressions every day happen, whether we realize it or not.
Yeah.
And I get to deal with them every day.
So here's another complex. I mean, there's all of these nuances in this identity. Mm-hmm. So one of the other complexities with that is how the microaggressions you are receiving as being a Black woman, it's also economic status as well too. So yep. Seeing you as a Black woman, automatically they see you as someone who's going to be on food stamps. So it's like that correlation between the two on how society sees people of color and the economic status of that individual. And also Absolutely. For education as well yep. too, right? They see that. Mm-hmm. So have you ever like wrote back or called them on it in the process of it?
Oh yeah, that lady got fired that day. She did. I was like, "I'm sorry, are you saying that you're not going to ring me out because you think I have food stamps, or is it because I'm Black? Pick one. Pick one." And she was like, "I'm not giving you food stamps." And I was like, "Go get your manager right now." And the manager already kind of heard, so she was on her way over and she said, "What's going on?" I told her what happened, and the lady behind me with the 3 kids validated everything I said. And she was like, "Pack your things, get out. I'll ring you up." And she took care of everything, apologized to everybody. I wrote a review on that manager to make sure her bosses knew she did it right. She handled it right. Because I didn't want her to get in trouble for just firing somebody on spot like that. They needed to know from the person that it happened to that she handled that just the way she do. I know didn't necessarily want that person to lose their job, but how dare you?
So so there's that complex nuance in the identity. There's also another, I mean, there's so many different layers to all of this. And this is I'm just kind of extrapolating a few of what could play out in someone that is multiracial. So you have the nuance of people looking at you as a Black woman and correlating it with economics, thinking that because you're Black, you should be on food stamps. There's another part where it's like, you as a Black woman, as a biracial woman, have you ever experienced where people would maybe people of color, maybe other Black women will be like, oh yeah, of course you can get that. You're privileged. You're biracial. You're light skinned.
Oh yeah, hot yellow. Yeah, that's a term. Hot yellow. You know, I'm the one that has house privileges. You know,
House privileges.
So back in, slave days, there was the lighter skinned Blacks because, masters would come out and have relations with their slaves and produce the lighter skinned kids. Lighter skinned kids got to be in the house because they're white passing, or they got to be in the house to do like kitchen work and stuff. So a lot of that high school, none of them hung out with me unless they were in show choir with me. None of them.
And when you say none of them, what do you mean? Like,
like in well, I don't know how your high school was, but my high school, there was the Black corner and the white corner, and then show choir, because we are weird. Okay. So like, I had my show choir friends, which was fine. And there was like maybe about 4 or 5 other Black kids that were in show choir, but a lot of them got to go sit on the Black side with all the other Black kids.
But you couldn't.
I couldn't. I wasn't allowed to.
But you also couldn't sit on the white side because you're not fully white.
Right. So I sit with show choir, which that's where I was comfortable anyway, because I was in show choir. So it didn't really matter. But like there's, with all my theater nerds, like that's what we did, But I mean, in high school it was rough. And it's funny because a lot of the people that I went to high school with that were on the Black side, they have since come to apologize to me. A lot of them have. Yeah, we didn't treat you correctly. Like, I'm so I'm sorry. And I don't know if they just were going back and reviewing their life or whatever, but a lot of them have come back to me to say, I'm sorry that I didn't let you come sit with me at lunch, or I'm sorry that sitting next to you to me seemed like was going to label me weird. And I was like, do you? It's fine. I still grew up into I'm still growing, I'm glad that everything's well and we're all, we talk, but I get that a lot even within my own race. I'm light skinned, I'm biracial, I have a white family. That to them is privilege already.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Just the fact that I have that, and man, Lord.
How do you navigate that?
It's hard to think back on it, honestly. It really is, because there was another biracial girl in my neighborhood at my school, but her parents were still together and she wasn't adopted. She still had a Black dad in her house. And she was accepted and loved and rallied over there. And it was just like, but what it'd be just because I have a white family? Like, is that the reason? And for a while, I was mad that I just had a white family, that I didn't get to have a Black family, because then if they could see that I had a Black family, maybe I could be accepted. And, it hurts. It sucked. Oh, it sucked so bad. And my sister would sit there and cry with me, which I loved so much. My sister's so awesome. She would just sit there and cry with me. I wouldn't have to tell her why. I didn't tell her what was going on. She would just sit there and cry with me because my heart was broken.
Yeah, because there wasn't a sense of belonging anywhere. You needed to create your own sense of belonging.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a whole nother complex identity, is creating your own. And here we are in a lot of organizations and institutions, they added in the B in the diversity, equity, and inclusion, and now belonging. Right. So they, that's the other thing that they're doing, is they want to create this sense of belonging, where everyone can feel like they can bring their whole authentic selves. But
Yeah.
unless we deal with all of the things that you've experienced, right? People of color looking at you as a biracial person as not enough, having the people of European descent look at you as if you're not enough. And then having your family is like, you know what, you are enough, but you still have to deal with everything else that society has put forth.
Right.
So
Yeah.
we cannot create a sense of belonging until we address all of those things.
Right. And like the one thing we like to say is like love will my love should be enough for you, like as a family. I always didn't feel like I could really say anything. I could say stuff to my sister, but like to my mom or dad I couldn't say like, this is what's going on with me, or this is how I'm feeling, because the one time I did, it's like, well, we love you, that's all that matters.
Mhm.
No, no, it's not. It's not all that matters, because I need to belong to more than just you.
Right,
I need to
right,
belong to a community and to a society that loves me too,
right.
for just exactly who I am. And I'm having a hard time navigating that. And, you know, I couldn't express that at that point because I'm still naive and young and in high school trying to figure myself out. But, where my family was loving me and supporting me, and that's where my comfort zone was. But I had no one at school to just like that was relating to me.
Right. Yeah.
One one thing it's so funny that you asked that, because I did kind of set myself up for that too. My parents, when we moved to Alabama, it was going into my sophomore year of high school, and they gave me a choice. Do you want to go to a school that's predominantly Black or predominantly white? Because there were two areas that they were looking for housing, and they gave me the choice of which school to go to. We toured both schools, and I leaned more towards the white one. And that's where we ended up buying the house, is in that school zone.
Why do you think you lean more towards the white one?
Where my comfortability was. If it were me now making the decision, oh, I'd be going to the other school. I would.
Yeah.
But this, like where I was at that, where my headspace was at that point, where I was still learning and growing, and my naiveness at that point, my comfortability was with my white family. So maybe the
Mhm.
white people will accept me more.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah. So all of those layers. And it's like we come from the different places with different experiences, with different ways of understanding the world. And
Yep.
you grew up in this space as a biracial woman, where the love that you garnered, that helped you grow and sustained you, was from your white family. Now
Mm-hmm.
that doesn't necessarily say that Black families are bad. You just didn't
No,
experience that.
exactly.
You just
Exactly.
didn't experience that. And so in between those nuances, people that are entering into your story need to understand everything else, all the layers that you've gone through to
Yeah.
get to where you are right now. Because sometimes I feel when people enter into our lives, that's what they know, right? They just entered into our life in this point right now. And everything they hear from this point on is going to be based off of where they came in at into your life. We are so complex. We ask people, please don't judge me from what you see into my life right now.
Right. There's so much more that built me.
There's so much more that built me. Exactly.
Yes.
Ask me about the challenges and the joys and everything that I have to go through to get to where I am right now.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. So
Absolutely.
it's like, yeah, listening to your story, it just tells me so much on the healing that we need to do collectively, the the leaning into curiosity,
Yeah.
you know, which when you lean into curiosity, it kind of abandons the bias a little bit,
Mm,
right?
yeah.
So it's like we're able to open our mind and be curious about everything that happens in our lives. And I think that's why it's questioning is a good way to lean into that. And so
Yeah.
everything that you have shared about the relationship with your sister, how you've navigated, you know, the world this far, your, you know, your husband's family helping you, your adopted father molding you, all of this plays um, into the evolution of Aloha. And that's why I asked you to be part of this podcast, because a podcast is the evolution of Aloha. And
Right.
Aloha, of course, means more than just a greeting. It's it's love and grace and it's compassion. But when
Yeah.
you break down Aloha, which is what I did in my dissertation, the ALOHA is ask questions and inquire, right? Lean into that curiosity, into the complexity, into the nuance of identity and all the in-betweens. And if you're going to ask questions, listen. Just like what you were saying, your sister listened and listened with her heart. She listened with her whole being because she was curious. She wanted to understand, so she needed to listen.
Yeah.
The O was also observing, you know, observing what was going on in your body. Your sister was like, I can feel it in my body, right? Hit, she got into an accident and went hug someone because it was what she was observing in herself, that was something, and we should all be able to do that. The H is the heart, to always center everything around your heart. That is where we can feel, that is where we can become alive. When we feel, we know we are alive. Sometimes I feel people don't want to feel. They don't want to feel. So
Yeah.
they deaden everything about themselves. And
Yeah.
then they just walk around like these freaking robots, and all they want is policies and practices and technical tools to fix things, but not fix themselves.
Right. Right. Yes.
Right? And then the final A is the acceptance and the adaptability, the
Mm,
acceptance to difference and to be able to adapt in that process of change and evolution. And, you know, that's what we need in order to grow. And so, yeah, your story has encompassed all of that. And so I appreciate you um, sharing that.
I-
I'm honored. I'm
I'm
honored.
that you asked, and I'm already learning more things about myself talking about it. So we're gonna break that stuff down too. We might have a part two later. Stay tuned.
Well, always, right? I mean, because we are not the same person that we were yesterday.
Yeah.
Every day we are changing. We're getting older. And you know, it's like I'm in the process of writing the book, The Evolution of Aloha. So I'm taking things from my dissertation and I'm turning it into a book. And as I'm writing it, you know, it's like I'm reflecting back on these memories from the past, and I can feel the emotion from what happened in the past.
Yeah.
And it comes to the forefront, and I'm like, ooh, I remember feeling this way. But to the point where I can observe those emotions and I can separate them to where that's the past. It's not going to harm me anymore. This is the reflection period. What did I learn from all of that?
Yeah.
Right. And knowing that this trajectory is sending me off to hopefully be a good ancestor.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, I would really want my kids and my grandkids and my great grandkids to look back and, you know, wherever they are in the moment, be like, Jima said that it starts from within. So, you know,
Let me start here.
exactly. What is this aloha Jima talked about? Let's talk about that. So I'm hoping that, you know, the work that we're doing, that will inspire and transform and evolve human consciousness to a different level. And you have just helped me do that. So thank you very
Oh,
much.
thank you. Anytime. If you need to evolve, I'm here for it.
Yes. And we, I mean, it's like we do this together. I think evolution cannot happen if it's not done in community.
Absolutely.
Because
Absolutely.
we've got to bounce shit off each other. Because can you imagine if I'm just like looking in the mirror every day and be like, you know what, girl, you are awesome. You are doing nothing wrong. You are great. If I just kept saying that, which is good, but
Right.
without the reflection, like, shoot, was I really great in that? Right? Did I harm
Yeah.
anybody?
Like, maybe I shouldn't have cussed that person out today, but it's fine. It's great.
Exactly.
They-
Right. So, well, thank you so much, Katie, for being here and for sharing your story with everyone. And everyone out there, thank you so much for listening in. This is the Evolution of AloHā podcast, a Plowline production. So please tune in for upcoming episodes with other amazing people. And don't forget to subscribe to the Evolution of AloHā and Plowline podcast, available on all popular podcast platforms. I am the co-host with my husband, Jeremy Tennell, on the Plowline podcast, and we've got some amazing stories there as well, too. So I am Dr. Jerry Balarosa Tennell. Thank you so much for being here for an inclusive, non-edited content. You can see Katie and I talk live, and it's going to be available on our Patreon page where you can become a supporter. So head over to patreon.com/Plowline Productions. Your contributions will go directly toward producing and building engaging more quality content. So thank you again. Until next time, Ohui ho, please take care of yourselves and each other. Aloha, everyone.
Aloha.